It's time to talk about me, Kris, and One Piece. Now, this is a heavy topic discussion video for fans of my channel. As we did, though, when it comes to One Piece, I was intuitively in love with One Piece around middle school era, so much to a point where I was watching spoilers based off future fights. It was around 2006. I was scrolling down Naruto Shippuden videos. I'm like, hey, let's check out One Piece. And all of a sudden, there's a big-ass leopard that's fighting Luffy. As the earlier choreography goes, I was a fan of Alabasta All Log Park, literally how Luffy gets stretched in general. Well, because my brother actually showed me the theme song on 4Kids, and then later on, started watching, Captain Kuro, the Funimation dub, aside of 4Kids. And I was like, this is the life. This video is a little bit more intricate. See, I looked up the spoilers for One Piece. My brother loved One Piece actually more intuitively. This video basically is breaking down One Piece from a fan standpoint versus still viewing it from a pirate standpoint. This is my other video reference, pirates in the form of DBZ. What kept them going throughout the series is knowing what pirates is on paper. Knowing that they're dirty landmines and thieves. When it comes to certain characters, certain gay characters like Lafayette, etc., you laugh at it and see through it. Me, I'm just wondering why they're gay. Pay attention, I was a big heavy fan of the first 3 arcs for Alabasta, right? I hope you did know that I checked out spoilers. I skipped the arc right after CP9. I skipped the majority, not actual One Piece, but the One Piece that has the Haymaker. I consider filler. Like Thriller Bark, I completely skipped it. After telling Kris, pop on CP9, saying, oh yeah, Luffy fights this leopard guy. I skipped Thriller Bark. I skipped Brook completely. When I knew, literally, I clicked on a Japanese episode of Brook Raw back when literally they had raw videos, no subtitles. I saw, the beautiful Rainbow Island skit. Brook and that flying fish. So like a super HD contour, a mega video is still achievable. And what ends up happening is, some major fan of One Piece say that's a big, chunk of their criteria because, characters like Perona and Gecko Warrior had certain abilities. Catch off guard, but then I did my further research and therefore the retarded Filipino community. And you need to understand, that was my, earlier criticism of life. Is it really retarded? Those are critical points of the arc and layer down the story. You have some powers and special abilities and catch you off guard. And then came Kuma. So, my biggest, my favorite fight from part 1 of One Piece is Zoro versus the draft Kaku. All up on that arc, watching A and B's over and over again. So when it comes to One Piece, the actual difference is state later on the video. So as I stated in earlier videos, he told me, to watch One Piece to get my life back together. Literally, the One Piece is gonna be there and Naruto isn't, which is a big conundrum, literally, in my life. Because I'm a child, I established that literally One Piece was the medium, literally between me and Naruto was betraying me through Dragon Ball Z. I figured out that that's the problem. So anyway, literally, my brother asked me to get further into Kuma arc. Bartholomew Kuma arc. What ends up happening is, that is right after, the Oz arc. So Oz, there was Absol. So, what ends up happening is I know the main events of One Piece, later on down the story. So, I start watching when he asked me, from Kuma's arc all the way down to the Word Best, all the way till we get hint and learn about the time skip. Start watching this, literally, it's funny, literally, Brooklyn's Penny, the tournament Trafalgar laws introduced, I didn't like Ball Hancock that much. But in truth, in all reality, I skimmed through One Piece all the way to a point where I figured out the war best. I started watching CP9 while I was watching Frankie. Frankie desperately looked like the time I actually sang Frankie Beverly to Marley the talent show. So kept me checked. That's why I figured out about One Piece in Japanese. So he was actually marathon One Piece, in and out, literally through and out. And I already told you the difference is that he knew what pirates were intuitively, like pirates or thug shit. Like Buggy the Clown, etc. So what happens is literally I get past, Trafalgar Law of One Piece, literally, and I get, to Shibori arc. I didn't like it. I did think it was as intense, and that's why I called out throughout the whole series. And where this gets complicated is down the line through the video. Is that at the time I was watching Fairy Tail. I was a very big Fairy Tail fan, at the time. And everybody knows the legendary rap battle, between Jalal and Rob Lucci. That was on my channel. So it may be a One Piece toward the most. Anyway, as we get down, the whole point of this arc is that Ace dies. Literally, Luffy's older brother Ace died. It's really impactful to the story, but not for me. And I figured it out, but I didn't want Ace to die. Ace was one of my favorite characters. Then the War of Best, literally, my favorite was Kizaru, that I actually cosplayed as Kizaru at one time. And then I was Mihawk, I actually chose Mihawk doing that actual another battle. Showed me the devil while I was in denial. Literally, some people said my punchlines were too good. Literally on paper, but I could tell it was at the wrong time. And that's why I figured out the devil. Hence, aka Devil Fruit. His name was Sabo Du. So ever since I figured out about characters like Sabo, my other characters like Julie Bonnie, I didn't like One Piece that much at all. So here's the criticism for this video. Literally, so I saw the main parts. I saw the Alabasta. I knew who Enel was. what happened all throughout the war best. But I skipped the Fishman Island arc as soon as they had the time skip. I knew what Caesar's Island revolved around because I was in the anime community where they talked about spoilers. So after that, figured out Trafalgar Law was finding out one person. And then guess what happens? I end up, watching the next arc. Quickly right next to Whole Cake Island arc. So the diminishing meaning behind this video because I was up to date with what was going to happen later on down the line, the storyline due to the One Piece community. There was going to be a final war in this location called Raphael. All the major, characters can come back, like, Wappo, Kuro, etc. That's how the anime community was formed, was through the war of best. They defeated the three Amirus. Guess what's the moral of this video? When it comes to One Piece, I do the pretty thing and Kris does the ugly thing. So what ended up happening? Those arcs, those parts that I skipped literally was heavy examples of why, the anime community catch me off guard, especially when it came to people like Akari. Because the Fishman Island arc was the best part about how hockey was being displayed. I only saw the bait pot, Mihawk and Sarah. Now I know what happens down the line through a spoiler video, so I'm basically caught up with One Piece of everything. Does that stop me from viewing it journally? Well, I just tried to watch the actual Elbaf arc. I gave myself too many justifications. It came to the meaning of less is more. Then they gave me a reason to stop watching. That's how bad the One Piece arcs are today. And in the middle there was Doflamingo, something that I was a part of. And I basically didn't skip Wano literally. I got down to a point where Sanji was in a black suit. And then literally, when Luffy vs. Kaido came out, literally is when I was still partying with Courtney at 28. Basically around the time when they met up with Jiri Bonnie. There goes what I know and everything I know about One Piece. In the future, basically literally my fan base is knowing and saying Blackbeard is gonna kill Shanks. Down the line, that's why I know more intuitively. But that's it for the video.